Good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming out. There should be a few more people probably coming in the course of the session, but thanks for joining us. This is the third of our quarterly Healys hotel industry breakfast briefings. We try and do these quarterly and talk about relevant topics to development and operation and legal issues in the hotel industry. I'm pleased to announce we have another great panel. Our moderator for the session is Catherine Dogrell from Hotel Analyst. And the panel is going to be Philip Shepard from PwC, a partner at PwC, who's going to give an introduction and participate in the panel. Other panel members, Andrew Shaw, Assistant Vice President of Development at IHG, Vicky Hetherington, a Development Manager at Wyndham Hotel Group, Wolfgang Gold, VP Development for Europe and Middle East of Easy Hotels, and Vivek Chadha, the CEO of Nine Hotel Group, an owner of several franchises. So I think it should be quite interesting. I'm a partner and head of the hotel practice at Healys Solicitors myself, and I hope it should be a good session. The batting order, Philip will start off with a 10-minute industry overview, and then Catherine will pose questions to the panel. Please feel free any time during the session if you have a question you'd like to discuss with the panel to raise your hand, and we'll take it up then, and then at the end of the session we'll also have opportunity to ask additional questions. So I hope you enjoy it, and Philip, please.
Cool. David.
Sorry.
David, when you speak ready?
Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you very much indeed, David. And I guess my role is just to try and set this up and set up some of the debating points. It's not an area where there's huge amounts of data on the franchising sector, so I'll try to sort of look at it from both sides. But without any apologies, I'm going to gratuitously start with a plug for our research report, which we publish every year, which some of you may get or find online, and just to lead us kind of, I guess, hopefully setting a positive scene for the industry, because I think we've seen 2017 actually being far better than we'd anticipated this time last year, and 2018 doesn't look too bad. We're looking at a situation where we think there's a positive global and European economic outlook, but we are seeing a deceleration in UK GDP, and some of the positive travel stats that we've had during 2017, principally driven by the excellent exchange rate appreciation we've had, which has helped inbound tourism. That's a kind of one-off impact, and it won't have such a noticeable impact going into 2018. So we're seeing quite a lot of benefits in the leisure sector, less so in corporate travel. I think the Brexit uncertainty will clearly persist now for quite some time, and I think we think that will have an impact on business travel into the UK, and also particularly in London we're seeing quite a sort of growth in supply, so kind of quite a lot more growth over and above the long-term average, which will clearly have an impact on occupancy and ADRs. So kind of what we're sort of looking at is, I guess, an outturn. If we just look at the RevPAR for 2017 at a 6% growth in London. We have in our report we cover the regions as well. Put that in context, last year we thought it was going to be about 2% and a bit, so it's considerably better than we'd anticipated. But we are an accounting firm, so we're not going to be so bullish going into 2018. But I think 2.5%, 2.4% growth is not a bad outcome, given probably where we thought we might have been in 2016 and after the Brexit vote and everything else was going on. So I think a reasonably good market outlook in the UK. I think a pretty good market outlook in Europe as well. So I guess for operating, everyone who's out there looking for developments, I think it's a good market to be looking in. You're looking at franchising in a reasonably complex environment of different value chains, and of course you've got the businesses that own and manage and have their own name above the door, completely probably much more the old style, the more typical in Europe, the owner, lease, manager and brand arrangement, and also the owner, just the manager and brand. So because what we're showing on here is that as you move towards the right, the economic risk, the economic gain is getting increasingly greater for the owner. And I suppose the interesting one, which we may come on to a bit later, may be debated a bit today, is the growth of the third-party operators. So where you've got the situation like here with the owner and then taking on the franchise, you've obviously got a challenge around the skills and ability to somehow manage hotels. So there's been quite a substantial growth in third-party operators, which is kind of filling that gap. So what I wanted to quickly do is so look at this from the two perspectives. The perspective of the brand, why would they be interested in franchising, what's in it for them, and then kind of the counterpoint is, of course, the owner, and of course it's only always ever successful when there's a win-win for both sides. Very quickly for the brands, clearly it's an opportunity to speed up the rollout. You can grow a lot faster. It possibly de-risks it sometimes into territories which you may feel a bit uncomfortable with how it might play out. Certainly that's the case with restaurant brands. They will go into markets, say the Middle East, and they probably wouldn't take ownership. They would prefer to franchise. You can benefit from the economies of scale because you've grown a footprint substantially larger. You're using your capital much more efficiently because you don't have to apply nearly so much. And as I'll probably talk about a little on the next chart, the economic balance, the commercial equation between franchising and actually managing is to some extent quite a lot equal. But of course on franchising, the risk profile is a lot different. Clearly the downside, and I think some of it, this will probably be a debating point today, is about your control of brand standards. And that's probably principally why we see most franchising at the sort of mid-market level rather than clearly at the luxury end, where I suppose some of the differentials must be owners feel they must be brand owners feel they must be maintained. But clearly that is where we again look at it on the restaurant trade. Some of the biggest problems are being where quality has just not been maintained in franchises. I think one of the challenges for a brand is how you terminate, because usually the options are quite nuclear and you just really don't want to go down that track. So how do you control situations when they don't really go very well? I think in Europe there's legal inconsistency. I think it's a challenge that there are different rules or different interpretations of the rules that are applied, unlike in the US where I think it's very transparent and it's very clear what the franchising regime is. And probably, as I said, to make it really work, you need a format that is highly replicable. You need, if you're a brand owner, you need to know very clearly what it is that you are rolling out. And if there's too much differentiation, too much choice, then it's very, very hard to control. And just very quickly, just on the economics and what you can just about see that. So, this is very simplistic. So don't sort of take it as read, but just looking, at a simple equation between a franchise fee, which may be between 4-5%, and a management base fee, 2 to 3% of total revenue, this is gross room revenue. The incentive fee would have said somewhere between 6 to 20%. It's a very, very wide range. But if you just generally apply that to a business which is getting a 20% GOP, 20% extra on F&B, and an index revenue of about 100 million, you can see that a franchise would earn you about 5 million, and a management fee between 3 to 8. Now, that 8 sounds great, but I think what we're seeing in the market is on the management side, fees are being squeezed a lot harder than they have on the franchise. Franchise range is much tighter than it is on the management side. So it's clearly potentially an economic benefit for going down the franchise route as well as all the other ones that we mentioned for the brand. I think for the owners, clearly the most attractive bit is taking control of the P&L and removing some of those misaligned incentives that exist in the market. Whenever there's a problem, it's because what's driving the brand manager to maximise his own profits is not necessarily in the interests of the owner. That can be removed. You can get, depending on the brand, access very quickly to global distribution. Clearly you'd have that if you went for a management contract as well. So this more probably applies if you're an independent hotel or independent group looking for a brand, and you do benefit from some of the scale benefits that the brand can apply. Some downsides that we've seen, and maybe not the priority one, but we've seen in cities where you've got a mixture of managed and franchise, there's clearly a conflict that could exist in the distribution between the franchise property and the managed one. And I've seen that, I wouldn't say in the UK, but I've seen it elsewhere as a challenge. You will lose some scale advantage that the brand, if it was managing the hotel, can apply. And I suppose the biggest challenge in many markets is that you need you need to find the team, the skills, and get the top talent to run these hotels, which possibly a bigger pool that exists within many of the brands. And what was on the right-hand side of this chart was really just to show that, to meet certainly some of the challenges around the skills and the scale, the growth of the third-party operators, people like Interstate and Amesbridge, have grown up to plug that gap, and they're providing, in many cases, a good economic bridge for the owner and running the franchise. What stats exist? I got one of my guys to sort of have a look at some of the main brands. I can't see which ones they are because it's kind of fallen off the chart. So this is not a total market representation, but it would have included looking at Accor, Hilton, and Marriott. Then in the US, there's about an 85% penetration of franchising versus for the equivalent brands about 50% in Europe. So we are, and it's probably not news to say that we are kind of behind the US in adopting this model, and maybe we debate why that is, legal, cultural, there may be many other reasons. One of the things that was going to say that Hilton have got probably just about 60% of their current European openings will be franchised, so it feels like over time the dial is shifting, and of course some of the major groups are kind of finding sort of middle ground, particularly for the independent hotel groups, independent hotels, which are the brands like Autograph Collection and Curio, which are kind of gives you access to the distribution but still retain your own brand presence, and so kind of a bit of a middle territory. So just to sort of, I guess, lead into some of the discussion points that we might want to cover, and I'm sure
just write them down now.
Catherine has quite a few more. I think there's something to, and clearly with Healys here, this is probably in their interest as well to cover this, is kind of what's going on between Europe and the US. Anything that we're seeing in the US that we might want to see coming into Europe or into the UK around the regulation and the law. How do you maintain brand standards? Is there anything one can learn from people who've managed to do it? What's gone wrong in the market where things have gone wrong? Will there be a market eventually for some of these upscale brands to start moving into franchising? Is there any real reason why some of them wouldn't? The TPO model, the third-party operator, maybe that's a debating point. I think clearly it affects all the industry, but this multiplicity of brands. I think we were saying Accor have got multiples. I guess IHG who've got many brands, principally through consolidation, through creating new ones to hit different lifestyle segments. But is that actually diluting your franchise proposition because you've diluted it across too many brands? Question. So far, franchise rates have held quite firm in the market, but as this grows, is there going to be a squeeze, or can the brands hold on to those rates that they've been able to so far? And I suppose because a lot of this is all around distribution and having access to distribution, there are many alternatives now around the OTAs, of course, and if you're an independent hotel group or independent hotel, small mid-scale hotel, why not Airbnb? So you are getting a number of different alternatives. Probably many other questions that Catherine wanted to dive into, but if I could leave it at that and just sort of hopefully that set the scene for some of the discussion. Thank you very much.
I'm going to clap, Mike.
Yeah.
Excellent. So, Philip takes his seat. Yes, franchising. The last decade or so has seen the rise of asset-light sale and leaseback has allowed everyone to move out, or the operators to move out of ownership and into franchising and management contracts. And with it has come accusations, certainly from the owner side, of power without responsibility. So that's something that we'll be looking at today. And so I'm going to kick off by looking directly at Andrew, who has feet in both camps in terms of management and franchise rather than ownership, and ask him whether franchising hotels is the best way to expand in the current environment.
Yes. I mean,
Excellent.
Wolfgang. No, it is. For us in the UK, it's 95% of our probably pipeline or more, and it's about 96%, 97% of our portfolio is franchised. So it's clearly a winning model for us. We've got many franchisees, multi-brand, multi-unit, that are looking to grow with us. And it really goes back to what Philip was saying, those points of how quickly you can get scale in the market. The market has changed quite a bit over the last few years with the rise of the TPOs and the third party operators, and I think that's driving the brands more down the franchise route, because there's a funder interest and an owner interest in sort of separating the brand from the management, because it gives more flexibility, perhaps. But we welcome that. We work with that. We're not precious about wanting to manage. We've refinanced portfolios from managed to franchise when we did the LRG thing. So we know which brands work best on a management platform, which tends to be the upscale and the luxury ones. But the fundamental workhorse brands of ours are very strong franchise propositions, and we work with the strengths of the brand, the strong levels of consumer awareness, the support structures that we have at IHG in terms of the booking platform and the loyalty program, etc. And that's really our selling points. It's very high profile brands that the customers owners want backed by the systems that fill them.
With franchising, do you favour having multiple sites per deal, or do you go for individual ones? Are you looking for an owner with 50 sites before you start showing an interest?
No,
in
it depends on the market. The UK market, because it's very mature, it's perhaps more mature than Europe, continental Europe, in terms of franchise opportunities. So in the UK, we've got single asset franchisees. It's their one and only. Then we've got people like Vivek, who are multi-unit owners, and we've got pension funds and private equity funds that own 30 or 40 assets. So we play in all the markets, and I think that breadth of owners shows how appealing the brands are. But then if you go into say Germany, which is a very lease-driven market, our growth strategy there has been based on partnering with 4 or 5 big, what we call MDA partners, multi-development site partners, who are they're each doing 10, 20 hotels, and that seems to be the better way of getting scale quickly in the German market. But you look at it in each, and we just signed a similar MDA in Spain to do 20 expresses. So it's market driven really. What is the growth strategy, and how does the market adopt the franchise model, I guess.
Yeah. So as you mentioned Germany, I'm just going to deviate into that quickly because I think it's an interesting third-party operator market. Are you seeing, I'm starting to hear sniffs of interest in that kind of sector or that kind of model? Are you seeing that?
We not so much. We are. Yeah, we know that Interstate are very active there. We know that Redefined BDL are very keen to get into the market. But ours, the franchisees tend to have their own management platform that runs them, because they've got scale themselves. If they're doing 20 odd hotels with us, they're probably doing a similar number with other brands, etc. So they've probably built their own management platform rather than needing to partner with a third party manager. But inevitably it will come, because it's clearly a proven model in the UK, that franchisor, third party manager. The banks like it, as I say, the owners like it. So I'm sure as the continental markets mature in terms of the franchise structure, I'm sure the third party system will follow. I mean, we've adopted it from the States, I think.
Yeah.
So it's come across the Atlantic to us and go across the channel to the others.
Okay, you mentioned Vivek, so inevitably I'm going to ask him now. Is that working out for you, your deal with Andrew?
That's a different conversation.
It can be the same conversation.
We're among friends. We're among friends.
Yeah. Well, absolutely, because what franchising has allowed personally me to do is actually grow scale and concentrate on what I want to do best, and that is the finance, the investment, the development side of the business. Because franchising, franchising with IHG, has really helped us concentrate on building a big hotel platform, doing multiple deals a year. I guess if I was independent, obviously it's all location dependent, but if I was independent, I'd probably focus more on trying to build my brand, trying to convince people to stay in a hotel without a brand, and especially in regional UK becomes a lot more difficult. But what franchising with IHG has allowed us to do is do 4 or 5 hotels a year and scale that front, and allowed me personally to grow faster. And I think it's obvious to say, but I don't know if the brand will admit it or not, but they're probably there's probably some scale. They probably want to see some scale in us. So if we owned 10, 15 ISG properties, we probably have a bit more bargaining power, a bit more, and we see the operations of ISG are probably more favourable to us and want to give us more support because we've got multi-site assets with the brand. So it's we can't hide the fact that having multiple multi-site hotels with the brand actually helps.
Okay, so I'm going to obviously have to ask Andrew whether that does have an impact and whether you're kind of higher up the table scale at the Christmas party or anything like that. But so I'm not just picking on Andrew, I'm going to ask the same question to Vicky afterwards. Are you better friends with Vivek as a result of him having multiple sites?
It doesn't work like that because we support.
Sorry, Vivek.
In terms of on a personal level, we're better mates. On a business level, the way we support franchisees isn't done by owner necessarily; it's done by region. So in terms of the sales and marketing effort and the reservations support, revenue management, the hire support, all of that, all of the bits that wrap around a franchisee to support them are done regionally, not by owner. So I guess if Vivek had multiple sites in London or in Manchester, he might benefit more from the support that's going into that city per se, but not because he's Vivek with 10 hotels across the UK. We have to be faithful and true to all the franchises and treat them equally. So we don't favour one over another with better deal terms necessarily or better support because they've got 20 hotels versus one.
No. If they're going into a territory which you're particularly interested in, do you favour them then?
If it's a new territory where we want to grow scale and we see there's an opportunity to grow scale, then the first person we partner with inevitably will perhaps get more favourable deal terms, and that's probably more about the key money side of it, because we're supporting them to grow in a market that we're not yet established in. So we're both dipping our toe in the water and taking a bit of a risk. So. Yeah, any sort of first early adopter would probably get better deal terms on the financial support than the ones that come in when the market's established and we've proven our abilities.
Yeah. Thank you. Vicky, do you favour somebody who has 20 hotels or would one hotel?
No, very
beautiful.
much as Andrew said, it's about the support and services that every franchisee gets. We can't differentiate between someone because they have 1, 2, 3 or 20 properties. But right, so as Andrew said, if it's a new brand, a new market, and we want to grow scope and scale, then there may be an opportunity then to work with somebody on a preferred deal because we want to grow in that market or that particular brand. But when you're then at saturation point, everybody is treated the same and treated equally and has access to the same distribution services, franchise support that any other hotelier would have.
When you're at saturation point, it's kind of an interesting scenario. I'm just going to deviate down a little moment because I'm not going to talk about Avid because I'm picking on Andrew too much already. but that's
no,
a classic.
we're not at saturation point.
but it's an interesting. I think Richard Sullivan said when they were talking about Project Horizon that they reached a point in the US where it was very hard to do anything in the hotel, in the Holiday Inn space, and that Avid has come in to provide another option. I don't think that's an unusual way to interpret that. I think it was pretty much said pretty much straight, so I'm not going to really get into that Avid thing. But is that something that drives new brands for you, Vicky, when you reach saturation, or am I misreading saturation?
No, I think it depends how you interpret that, but for us at Wyndham we have a diverse portfolio of brands that mean that it enables, as Vivek said, us to work with multiple units, multiple sites with an operator, so you can start with a Days Inn and work your way through to then have a Ramada or a Wyndham Grand. So no, I don't think it necessarily is a saturation point in that sense.
Okay. Wolfgang, Easy's model is very nuanced as far as franchising goes. Do you want to talk us through that?
Well, Easy is a mixture of both owned, operated and franchise. So if you're looking just for the UK, it's a mixture of both owned and operated. Outside the UK, it's pure franchise business. But it works very well, especially in the UK. We're launching in markets where we want to be first, and then open it up, proving that the hotel works there. We can open up to franchisees. So in that respect, it also shows to the franchisees that we are putting our own money into the game as well, and not just other people's money. So we have our own risk in there as well.
Yeah.
I think in that respect it works both ways. It works very well.
It's kind of an interesting model, the easy one, because you guys kind of trundled along for a while.
Yes.
Would be the way to put that. And then all of a sudden you had to use your own cash to achieve the scale that you wanted,
Yeah.
to be able to achieve franchising at the scale that you wanted, which is...
Well, yeah, for 10 years or so, Stelios was really messing about with it and not doing anything with it. And then obviously went to IPO, and since it's changed to a PLC, new management structure, new ownership, Stelios out of the business, and there's a completely different focus. And they raised capital as well, so with that, then yes, the focus is on growing the brand. Plan is 50 hotels for 2020.
Mm-hmm.
En route.
Philip, to go back to your presentation a little bit, what are the advantages and disadvantages of franchising in the UK as opposed to Europe, where it's a bit confusing?
I guess in the UK is, I mean, you've probably still got this market. There's probably a lot of independent hotels still around the market, which probably, I think somebody was alluding to, are beginning to suffer as the scale of the brands, or even Airbnb, are putting on pressure on them. So I think there's opportunities of rebadging existing hotels, even if that's a kind of technical challenge for brands, because you've got to try and do quite a lot to make the brand standards work. And I think because we've also got the maturity of the TP, the third party operator model is greater here than maybe in the rest of Europe. So that, I think, as Andrew was saying, that's kind of also in that circle enabling the market to happen. So the owners have got options to look just beyond negotiating with the brands, but negotiating with the third party operators. So I think there seems to be more opportunity because it's a bit more mature and it's a bit more aligned, looks to the US probably more than maybe some of the other European markets. Nonetheless, I think it's still quite a bit to go. I think on talking to my own legal colleagues, we have a legal team, they would say that the franchising, they would sometimes argue it's not really franchising, it's licensing, and there's still lots of things that probably need to be put in place to make it as easy to do as it probably is in the US.
Yeah. David, is it franchising or is it licensing?
Well, I think franchising really is a form of licensing. I think the answer is both. Franchising is basically a license of a trademark and know-how and provision of services to a franchisee. And as Philip rightly said, that's different in different countries how that pans out legally. In the UK, it's very lightly regulated. There's really no franchise law. It's a matter of general contract law and IP law, whereas in the US and many other countries, it's much more heavily regulated. There's disclosure requirements, quite extensive disclosure requirements. There are franchising laws in many states and countries that specifically delineate what can and can't be in a franchise agreement, what provisions must be in there, what provisions can't be in there, and what you can and can't do to market the franchise. But the UK and most of Europe are pretty light touch, and at this point there's no EU overriding franchise law to provide guidance.
Is that likely to change, given that soon we won't care in this country about EU?
I don't see it happening anytime soon. I think the laissez-faire, the EU has been in discussions for many years about doing a franchise law, but it's never happened. I think the preference of the member states is just to have a light touch and have industry regulation like whereas, for example, in the UK, the British Franchise Association has a code of conduct for members that gives best practice guidelines for its members, but there's no really strict law on the books to requiring franchises to be in particular forms and particular disclosures and particular forms of agreements, and the same in Europe. It varies a little bit from country to country, but it's a much more lighter touch. I don't see, unless there are abuses, the reason the States has gone that way is because it's such a massively popular model for doing business. There was just, in the bad old days, just like in timeshare, there was a lot of abuses, and there was a lot of companies trying to franchise brands that really didn't had no business doing so, and had sharp practices and that needed to be done. Oh, just the kinds of services they were providing, and not a strong enough balance sheet to support what they claimed to be able to do, and misrepresenting what their capabilities were as a franchisor. So and we could go into what the franchise disclosure document requires at length, but basically it's a full, transparent document that sets out the history of the franchisor, their capabilities, what it's going to cost to use their product, and what the franchisee can expect to get. So.
Vicky, have Wyndham found it easier in the UK than the US, or where are they anticipating going in Europe that would be even easier?
No, I think it's completely different markets for us, and we have diverse brands and we operate in very diverse markets. So, from our point of view, we have our regional EMEA office in London that operates quite autonomously than the US. Obviously, we have to deal with their brand standards, their license agreements, but no, we're quite comfortable operating in our regional markets.
Mm-hmm. And Wolfgang, internationally, do you see a huge festival of franchising for Easy?
I wish. I would like to, let's put it that way. No, the plan is definitely to grow in Europe, Europe, Middle East, Africa. Made some good strides, just signed Iran and Sri Lanka.
Of course.
Master development agreement, so that's going into Asia as well now. The franchise market in Europe is still in infancy, I would say. There's still a lot to learn from developers there. There's still, every time you speak to somebody, you take lease, you do a lease, and that's the main question really. So it's still a lot to learn that their franchise is an option for them.
Is that because of the weight of institutional investors, or just history?
It's certainly historical. But as Andrew alluded as well, is if you partner with some big developers in Germany, then yes, it works, and that's what we've done in Benelux as well. So it works on that side, and it's really finding those developers who can take the risk and take the franchise.
Vivek, international franchises, fun, not fun?
I think in terms of financing, I think it's a lot more difficult. We did a hotel in Spain, in the south of Spain, and what we found is, obviously there is a shortage of rooms, for example, in continental Europe. However, the financing models are a lot more difficult, which allows essentially the hotel operation franchising a lot more difficult. So it depends on liquidity of the market and appetite, because at the end of the day, the way a hotel is going to work and going to perform and to expand in the market is liquidity and with the financial institutions. So that's why the UK for us there's still a lot of opportunities, and personally speaking, we like to be in a market where we know how it works. It's our bread and butter, and there's still opportunities in the UK.
Do you see, in the light of PwC's comments about possibly too much supply coming into the market in the next year or so, is that something that's concerning you?
There is a huge concern, but it's the new supply is no way close to what they used to be. It depends on location, of course, but there are certain other cities where there isn't enough supply, and there probably wouldn't be because it's difficult to stack up. But I think there's opportunities in the UK for repositioning of hotels. I think there has been a lot of hotels in the UK that haven't been loved properly, taken care of properly, where there's opportunities for the owner operator type of model to come in and really turn around and turn the hotel around and make it a lot more profitable. And working with certain brands helps that, because I haven't been in the industry long enough to know what a life cycle of a certain brand is, but unfortunately, brands, we don't know what the brand today is going to be like in 5 years' time, and whether it's going to die out, whether it's got a bad reputation. And we've seen that in the last 10 years, where we've seen a lot of brands who are very, very, very popular have just died down. And then there's an opportunity of rebranding it with because back now the franchising operations is much more popular, you can do a lot more. Get a lot more support. Whether it's through rewards programs or anything like that.
When you're choosing a brand, then do you look at the potential life cycle of that brand, and how can you possibly know?
It's difficult, but the way we judge it is by the power of the wider company behind it, and seeing what they're doing, investing, seeing where they are in the life cycle. Whether they're still privately owned, or whether their incentives are a lot more bigger and global. You just never know. Unfortunately, if I knew like what a brand, what the Holiday Inn is going to be like in 5 or 6 years' time, it's just impossible to know where the brand's going to be, and that is where the risk is.
With the kind of huge proliferation of brands at the moment, are you concerned that you'll sign up to some brand and then they'll introduce, say, another brand in a very similar, say, catchment area, and then that, for example, and then that will maybe put some pressure on you?
Yeah, absolutely. We're always scared, brands like to use their core brand, and then they sort of add a sub brand to it, and that's difficult because when we negotiate our franchise agreements, we try to get exclusivity of that brand and tertiary rights, but that's all pointless if they add another brand, which is quite similar to what it's doing right now, and that's why it's so. You never know where you are in the life cycle.
David, is there any way to hedge against introducing random new brands which might be quite similar?
You could certainly put it something in the franchise agreement that the franchisor will not, in the territorial exclusivity, will not introduce the brand on offer or any other brands that compete with that brand in the same geographical encashment. It's of course difficult if there's an M&A transaction where you've automatically got a new flag and something will have to be negotiated when that happens. But
Marriott had some issues.
Yes.
So presumably this is something that isn't terribly common when you're negotiating franchise contracts.
Well, it's something certainly for a franchisee to consider with the major kind of brands that are continually either adding brands or doing M&A transactions that could proliferate their holdings of brands in places that are not contemplated at the time the franchise agreement was entered into.
Yeah. Andrew, are your franchisees concerned at any point you might introduce a new brand, or that you may get taken over, say, by another company?
I don't think so.
Excellent.
No. We're very careful around brand territories or AOPs or whatever. And having come from we had the LRG portfolio, which was every hotel had an AOP, brand up, brand down. So if it's a Holiday Inn, you couldn't do an Express or a Crown Plaza, etc., etc. So and that was a managed estate, and when we flipped it to franchise, part of the rationale behind that was to get rid of the AOPs, to get rid of that restriction, because that stymies growth. At the end of the day, we're a publicly listed company in the UK and the States. We've got to show growth, whether that's through RevPAR and fees or through system size and the number of rooms in the system. So we don't want to restrict ourselves to growth, but equally we have to be fair to franchisees. So there is an impact policy that each franchisee can use if they believe that what we're looking to do is going to unfairly impact their hotel. That tends to be just for the brand. You can't claim if you want to do another Holiday Inn. You can't claim it's going to impact your Express. So we're very careful around it, conscious that we've got to look after franchisees, but equally conscious we've got to show growth.
Yes, and they joined you because you're showing growth, one assumes. So.
Yeah, and the funds that bought the 3 LRG portfolios were very aware, very transparent what we were doing, and so if we want to do something that's next door or near to the hotel they bought, they know that part of the rationale for doing the deal with them was because we could release the AOP. So, I guess it can be a contentious conversation, but it's not. We don't lose deals over it. Put it that way. There's bigger things that franchisees focus on than AOPs.
What, are you losing deals over them?
No.
I think excellent. Vicky, how are you managing owner happiness in terms of your huge brand stable?
I think it's about making sure we have the right fit to begin with. So it's very much about having that collaborative approach with an owner about their expectations, our expectations, and making sure the two meet in the middle and being sure that the brand fits for them. In terms of making sure we have the right brands, as Andrew said, that gives us the opportunity to have expansion, but being very mindful and very conscious of the relationships we already have and have in place. And you know, at the end of the day, we want to deliver revenue and do well and perform well for our franchisees. Therefore, it's in our interest to make sure that the AOPs are relative to the client and to us as well. It was important to have that collaborative, honest and transparent approach to begin with, to make sure that everything fits together and we're managing our internal expectations to stakeholders as well as those of the client as well.
Correct me if I'm wrong, which happens just hourly, but Wyndham has a deal not with Airbnb but with one of the sharing platforms as far as distribution goes.
Through our vacation ownership rentals we do, but that's a completely separate business to the hotel group.
That's not something that is sold as an attraction, a potential additional
the
distribution.
only way that's sold as an attraction is through our blue thread of Wyndham Rewards. From a consumer perspective, they can use that across all of our vacation, destination and hotel group. That's the consumer benefit, but it's not a competition or an issue for us within hotel group.
Yeah. Do you see that something that might expand that way, possibly?
Absolutely. Wyndham Rewards is the blue thread that ties all of our businesses together, and it's a huge, huge selling point for us. You know, because it's such a beneficial platform, 52 million plus members worldwide, and we are very unique in the industry in our proposition that we have, you know, James Villas as a holiday where you can redeem them. Rewards. We have our hotel group if you just want to, you know, you're staying a day's in on a corporate travel but you want to redeem for a Wyndham Grand as a leisure. Not many operators have that flexibility of using points across many, you know, a family holiday and hotel points.
Yes, no, it's definitely a rising thing though.
Yeah.
Wolfgang, you guys don't have a loyalty program
Not
yet?
at the moment, no.
No, too small, too don't care, too cheap anyway.
I think a combination of all of those. Yeah,
all good reasons.
definitely too small at the moment. A loyalty scheme does cost a lot of money to run and to maintain. And even when you see it, even with EasyJet, they don't have a loyalty program. They've got an EasyJet Plus, and you have to pay for that. So maybe that's something to consider for us in the future. But yeah, at the moment, there's no need.
No. So, David, away from the idea that you might want to avoid, say, having a holiday in a Holiday Express on the same contract, what's the most popular negotiation trauma that you see when you're negotiating franchise contracts?
What is the biggest areas of contention then?
You could put it like that.
Yeah, I would say certainly commercial terms is the greatest. Territory. Restrictions, if it's a master franchise agreement, obviously the development requirements for the master franchisee, the term, any liquidated damages for not fulfilling or for prematurely terminating the agreement or for breach of the agreement, and I suppose termination grounds for each of the parties.
Have those changed of late?
I think those have pretty much always been the issues that I've seen of conflict between franchisor and franchisee in the areas of contention. And obviously it depends on the strength of the parties as well. If it's one of the big brands, they're going to be in a stronger bargaining position. Certainly Marriott, I know, does not negotiate hardly at all. They just tell you this is the agreement and like it or leave it. And for a smaller franchisee, they have little choice. For someone like Vivek that has multiple franchisees and has multiple brands, he's in a better position to negotiate with the big brands.
So they are better friends then if there's more of them.
Well, it's there's a more balanced agreement probably.
I see. I love that kind of balance. It's very magical. So Vivek, have you seen that the balance of power between owner and brand has changed given the kind of recent proliferation of brands? Do you feel that you have more bargaining power?
Yeah, the truth is, I think there is. In terms of the owner side, I think if you have multiple sites, I think you definitely have. If you're doing multi-site agreements, then yes. And I don't see a reason why there shouldn't be. If we're talking just about the UK is such a consolidated market, and and it's so difficult to do deals now in the UK just because of the number of hotels, the number of brands already out there. So on a stabilized market like the UK, where brands need to do deals and they obviously have goals and they have targets they need to hit. I think there are opportunities, and you probably get better. I think you can get better terms doing multi-site agreements with brands. In terms of owners, it all depends, because there are certain ownership groups that probably just held hotels for 20 years and haven't expanded, but then the younger generation is now coming in where they're aggressive. They want to do 5-6 deals a year. So surely it makes a difference. I mean, I think it'd be stupid if brands didn't actually concentrate on younger, more aggressive owners, because they're the ones who are going to be doing the deals in such an established market like the UK.
Vicky mentioned the loyalty program. How much of that is a driver for you, having a strong loyalty program? When you choose a brand?
It's hugely important, with the likes of Airbnb coming in and different, so many third parties coming in. It's so important having a great loyalty scheme, because we find guests who come in and book through their corporates, they can use their points on the leisure stuff, even though it's paid by the corporate. So it's a huge incentive, and we see loyalty programs work all the time, and it attracts worldwide business. If someone stay, we have one property where it's close to a lot of US companies, and we decided to go with the Hilton brand because it drives a lot more US business. So it's very important with the loyalty scheme.
Yeah. Hilton were one of the first companies to introduce a loyalty member discount when booking direct, and it's made some owners a bit stabby. So, did you have any issues around that? Or do you have an opinion on the current realm of discounting for driving direct?
I think it's a great initiative, and you see all the rest of the brands follow through, and it's a win-win situation for the franchisor and the franchisee, where we get promotion of direct bookings, and we're seeing that come through a lot more, and I think in the courts, in the European courts, there's definitely a win battle there's definitely a win situation for the brands, because of the lack of transparency that OTAs are putting out there. I think eventually the brands have a strong case.
Andrew, when you're approached by owners or you approach owners, how quickly does the distribution argument come up?
In terms of
how much are they looking to you to add a recognisable flag? How much are they looking for your distribution machine, engine, call it what you will?
Depends where you're having the conversation. In the UK, without trying to sound too egotistical, I think if franchisees coming to us, they've already made the brand choice in a way, and it's whether or not you can agree commercial terms. So because we've got that very strong awareness of the brand, Holiday Inn is about 95% prompted awareness. So people recognise the brand.
Yeah.
So we've ticking that box. Our loyalty program is 100 million members strong, globally about 8 million in the UK, and we've got a very, very powerful reservation system. So those are our three pillars essentially. But the key one, I think, is the loyalty program. It is a fundamental part of our strategy to target the OTAs and to win back the business, get it booked direct. So that helps the franchisees. It lowers their cost of distribution, and it gets the attention of the consumer. They're more likely to book direct the second time they come. We've had very tremendous success with the lowest price promise campaign we ran with Holiday Inn Express last year and this year in the UK. We've had adverts on the TV, and it's driving a lot more direct business into the hotels, and our growth in direct room revenue is stronger and quicker than the growth in revenue from OTAs at the moment in the UK. So we're starting to, we haven't won the battle by any means at all, but we're starting to gain some ground back from the OTAs, and the loyalty program is front and centre of that campaign. It's very, very important to us and to franchisees recognise what we put into the loyalty program to drive membership, and there's a guaranteed price point. You will not get a lower rate on an OTA site if you're a loyalty member and you book direct through the loyalty program.
Yeah.
It's the only way you will get the lowest rate.
How much repeat direct booking are you seeing?
I don't know off the top of my head. I don't know. But I do know that loyalty program revenue across, I think it's across Europe, is over 25% of rooms revenue in hotels. So it is, if you're driving more than a quarter of your revenue through your loyalty program, it's a very solid base for a franchisee to start with.
Yeah.
And that's an average across the estate, across all brands. So there'll be key cities and brands where we're delivering a lot higher percentage of revenue through that program. So we just have to build on that and just keep hammering the message home that it's the only way a customer will get the lowest rate is through being a member and booking direct.
A quick show of hands, who's a member of, say, 6 or more loyalty schemes?
Me.
And are you repeat booking via direct as a result of your first time discount?
More likely to.
More likely to. Warming. It's very warming.
Raises there.
Right. So you're still doing your due diligence.
Yep, I was at something yesterday where bookings.com said the average booker on their site, and they've got terabytes of data, will visit 30 pages before they actually book a hotel. That's their finding.
Right. Okay. It is all about the data though, isn't it?
They
Are
are
you
finding
enjoying the
data.
loyalty data? Is that helping your business? Because that's
And
another, well, all the data that you get as a result of the loyalty scheme helps you pitch how things are going, who to target.
Well, it's
the
a
best.
valuable database, and that's the OTAs hate us for that, because that's how we use these closed user groups to do our price pitching, which the OTAs don't like, and that's what they're challenging us in the courts, and we're challenging them on price parity. So, because they see, well, whether it's us or Hilton or the other big brands, we're all pushing our loyalty programs very strongly. Because it benefits the franchisees because their cost of distribution is slashed, and we just got to keep putting the money behind marketing the brands and getting the profile up there, backed by the loyalty program. They really are our two selling points. That's very important.
So David, everyone seems happy about loyalty points and programs when they're negotiating. What are the main bones of contention once everyone's put that out of the way?
Well, it varies really by kind of location and financial condition of the franchisee. Obviously, one that's more has financial difficulties, their main kind of argument will be that the royalty fee is too high. Can you reduce it temporarily or on a permanent basis so that I can have a profitable business? From the franchisor's perspective, for someone like that, they're concerned many times about maintenance of brand standards and investment. If the franchisee doesn't have sufficient capital and is not meeting its brand standards, it drags down the whole system, so there is there can be a dispute from that side on the maintenance of the property and investment in the property, and so, another from the franchisee perspective, another point of contention is sometimes the delivery of reservations, and what was promised is not necessarily what they're experiencing in the number of reservations that the system
Does
is
that
putting
go
in.
back to what Philip referenced earlier about the kind of disparity between managed and franchised operators favouring the managed ones over the franchise in terms of delivering?
Well, I don't think it's a conscious choice either from the manager or the franchisor on how many reservations are delivered. It just sometimes happens in a particular market that Americans don't want to go to Bulgaria, or it's just geographical or sometimes appeal of the location that influences the effectiveness of the delivery system. Yeah.
Brilliant. So Wolfgang, how are you finding? Did you have to crack the whip on your franchisees to make them maintain their standards?
Yes,
you
in a
do.
way.
It's an easy hotel.
In a way.
No, the reason being because we went
Right,
into
orange, Andrew.
Paintbrush with a tin of orange paint.
you need to look at the new rooms. With the new standard was last year in February to get everybody on board and get the old hotels or the existing franchisees to change to the new standard.
And were they super pleased about that?
they weren't super pleased about it. They were pleased that there's a new product out there and it looks better,
Mm.
but they still haven't decided to, or they still haven't put the money in to change it, or not as yet. They're slowly doing it, but not as a rate that we would have liked it to.
Why can you not make them do that?
It's a hard play. So yes, you can make them do that, and play so you lose your franchise and everything else, but then you risk of losing a hotel. So it's a fine balance how you approach that.
How important is the brand standard to the?
Yeah, that's where it comes in. How important is the brand standard? How important is making money? So I think it's
Shocking.
yeah.
But
Being a PLC, it's important making money.
it is a balance. I mean, to Vivek's point about longevity of brands, if the franchisor doesn't, evolve their brand and make sure that franchisees are keeping pace and refurbishing, etc., then that damages the longevity and that damages your franchise proposition. So, on the one hand, you've got to evolve your brands and insist that franchisees keep pace and refurbish. But at the same time, there's a cost attached to that. So if you look at what we've done with the two core brands with Express, we're now on Generation 4, second year of launching that, and franchisees have got till 2019 to upgrade to the latest generation. We've done the open lobby with Holiday Inn because we recognise that guest love scores are decreasing because they didn't like the sense of arrival and the lobby product or the lounge product. So we've introduced a new concept which is going great guns. And once again, it's the early adopters. You help support them, the early franchisees that refurbish and put the new concepts in, and then it gains momentum because you then show to the other franchisees that we're driving 30% more revenue through open lobby into F&B. You're getting almost a 10% RevPAR increase on Generation 4 versus Generation 3 on the bedroom. So you quickly find your franchisees are then adopting the new brand standards and wanting to quickly renovate their hotels, and it pushes out the longevity again. It keeps the momentum and keeps you sort of top of the pack and ahead of the game in terms of customer recognition, because it all comes back through customer feedback and customers lingering longer in the public spaces and spending more money.
IHG was particularly brutal with the way that it's got rid of those that weren't meeting up to brand standards, to the extent that I think it kind of cut the expansion to the point that I think some of the analysts were getting a bit tetchy about the growth compared to, say, people like Marriott. But so I think it's quite a brave move to take it to that kind of level. As far as the UK goes, Philip, you were talking about this huge expansion. Are you thinking there's too many franchises in the UK? Still,
I suppose I sort of stand back and think, why, if you're a hotel group, do you want to do this in the first place? It is all about getting that distribution, hopefully lower cost. It is about the loyalty scheme. But, clearly the market isn't going to sit still, and there are loyalty schemes out there that are across a number of hotel groups, more at the upscale one. Quite a Global Hotel Alliance has 10 million members. Why couldn't, in the time, there'd be something, and with technology this thing could happen really quickly. I mean, just look at Airbnb. It's gone from nothing to being as big as Marriott in terms of value in the space of 10 years. That something wouldn't come along that addresses that loyalty issue and removes the risk, I suppose, that you've associated with a brand that doesn't have, because with the best one in the world, I don't think the brands can pump the same amount of marketing effort into 25, 30 brands as they could around 3 or 4. So, I think at the moment it's clearly the equation does look quite good if you're a hotel group on the franchisee side. I do question, though, coming down the track, whether there's, and we're going to be talking about this next week, about whether there are alternatives that, with the new generation of people and the way they book and the way they maybe the brand doesn't mean so much to each of these people as it would do to a different generation. So I don't know if that answers the question, but that's why I'm listening to everything. I always kind of question that we're looking at the here and now, and we know very quickly the here and now can change. This time next year we probably won't be doing Uber, we'll be doing Lyft. And Lyft can just land in this city, take on 40,000 drivers instantly, and you can just download an app, and we're back to where we were, and Uber's vanished.
Oh, we'll still be doing Uber. Any questions from the floor?
Can the panel justify the length of franchise agreements, and why, as an owner who's invested in their product, they're paying loyalty fees, they've done their PIP, they're running the hotel, you're even charging your franchise fees on bookings that have come through OTAs, why they can't have 5-year franchise agreements. Because I think from a value perspective, that has a considerable impact. So I'll chuck that open to the panel.
It's the brand, if I may answer that, it's the brand longevity as well. As Vivek mentioned before, you need to look at the brands and how long are they out there. So if you only have 5 years an agreement, you lose a hotel and you have to start all over again. So it is a minimum 10 years to get the brand recognised and get the brand up and running.
But what happens if that brand is not performing, like you just used the Uber, and they're not updating? You end up in this unhappy marriage, and actually you've got, maybe you'll say, yeah, you can break, but it's 5 years worth of fees, and the owner's going, well, that has a considerable impact. You look at how retail leases have come down from 20 years to maybe 10 or even 5, and I think actually the hotel sector should have a hard look at that and look at that model, because I think a competitive, fluid market is a good market for owners, and that's what we want, owners and new investors coming into the market, rather than, I think the franchise model is actually skewed to the franchisor's benefit.
But on the other hand, I wouldn't recommend to a franchisee to sign up for a 5-year franchise agreement. They've made a substantial investment in the franchise, and many franchisors that want to introduce 5-year agreements will want to completely renegotiate the deal after the 5-year period, and the franchisee, if they've been successful or over a barrel, because they had a long-term, they could have had a long-term agreement that kept them on reasonable commercial terms, and an unscrupulous franchisor could, jack up the royalties to continue after that 5-year period. So it's a double-edged sword. I think the length of the franchise agreement, I think it's often protects the franchisee as much as the franchisor.
Yeah.
I think going back to one of the points we've made before about the key negotiating points, is that is one of the things that people are now asking is, can we look at LDs, liquidated damages to exit, but can we also look at a break clause? And there can be terms and conditions or caveats around that, but it's certainly been more over the last few years that the owner and operator or management company has then said, okay, we'll sign a 15-20 year agreement, but we want a right to exit in 5 years, 10 years, or if X, Y, Z criteria isn't met. So we've certainly found that is a negotiating tool as part of those commercial terms within the FLA at the time of agreement. That protects the owner, that they've invested X amount of millions of pounds on a pit. We're not going to say in 5 years it's an end, as you say, David, but from an owner's point of view, it gives them a little bit more surety as well around if they're not happy.
I think if you got your point. Come to you in a minute. we put your hand there. We know you're there. Whoever you are. Sorry, where was I? Sorry, so Henry, to your point, if all brands were created equal, and I think you might have a stronger argument, but they're not. I think if a franchisee gets the choice right at the start, and they choose the brand that's got longevity, it's got high customer awareness, it's been there a long time, it's going to be there in the future, then you don't need to have that conversation about length of term. And if a franchisee's built an express, he's only got a 5-year term. We can go and be hard on the renegotiation in 4 years' time.
Go to another brand.
Yeah. But then he's spent his millions doing the express. He's then got to spend a few more millions to convert it and get the brand.
It's much more flexible, I think, between the brands, as in.
I
think that's good. I think it makes it more competitive. I think a competitive market.
You're costing franchisees money in pips if they're refurbishing every 5 to 6 years to flip brands.
Is not delivering. He wants to.
That's what I'm saying. All brands aren't created equally. So you make your brand choice at the start and make sure you've done your due diligence and you've looked at what Holodex is delivering to that system versus the options, and you get all of that out of the way, and you choose your brand correctly. Take whatever advice you need from you or other agents, etc., and make sure you go in with your eyes open and choose the strongest brand for your hotel in your market.
Would you be more reassured if the brands still own some of their hotels?
What I'd be reassured with is that as an owner, you say, right, it's not working, and then the management company or the brand comes and say, well, that's going to be 5 years worth of fees, Mr. Jackson, for you to break. And you're like, well, that's not really reasonable on the basis that we did our DD, we looked at your comp set, and for whatever reason, it hasn't worked. You know, by the time I'm paying 8% of rooms revenue, you're filling all the business is coming through the OTAs. My return on my capital isn't working. And actually, do you know what? I'll brand it independently. I know that's like sacrilege in this room at the moment, but I've got one owner who owns a good hotel in the centre of Bath. He says, I see no value branding. I've actually used the OTAs. That's my cost of filling my hotel. I manage it very carefully. And I just think a flexible market with a choice out there, rather than, oh no, we've got 20 years, it's going to be a holiday for 20 years, and the financial clauses are so great that you'll never change. It's actually not a good thing for the market. It's not a good thing for the owners. And
franchisees have got more choice now than they ever had in terms of number of brands that are out there competing for the same space.
Build some flexibility into your contracts to allow that. If
we
you are so good, you won't move. Yeah.
We are pretty unique in offering every franchisee a termination without cause. So for whatever reason they can turn around and say they don't want to be part of a brand. Yes, they've got to pay a fee to get out, but most franchises will lock you in for whatever it's a 10, 15, 20 year term. You have absolutely no right to get out. But we are confident with our brands and our delivery that we will give, for whatever reason, the right to every franchisee to terminate.
That's not in every. I take that side IHG stance, but that's not across the board.
Well, no, that's what I'm saying. All brands aren't equal, so get your brand choice right at the start when you're going in.
So your owner in Bath, at the moment, I could put up a tent in Bath and somebody would charge me £200 to move into. But in next year, when I think something like, was it 800 rooms are coming on stream in Bath, what's he going to do then?
Well, I think you've got to look at the sector it's coming in at. Zed's going in, which is limited service. It's all relative to, and the Indigo. But actually, you look at the fundamentals.
Indigo, I've been in for years, mate.
Indigo.
This year.
I will post it every day. That's what I've soon.
And it's running at kind of north of 90% occupancy. So even if you lose say 3% occupancy, it's still a fantastic market. And I think if he said, well, by the time I've paid 8% franchise fees, loyalty fees, etc., I'm actually better using the OTAs. I think that's a good thing to have in the market.
I would agree that not every hotel needs a brand, absolutely.
But I think sometimes we get in these sessions and it's all just about brands, and I'm quite of the view that actually, as Andrew's just said, it's not all about putting corporate brands on hotels.
How big's that hotel?
I couldn't possibly say, so I might give its location away. And Bath is a small market. And I think when it comes to the valuation side of things, I've been selling some branded hotels, and a lot of the buyers have said, do you know what, we'd actually pay more without the brand on it, just to throw it out there in the market. Because
I think it's accepted now that brokers are saying they want to be able to sell hotels that don't have brands on.
But no, they just want flexibility. So, which the franchisors hate. But as an owner, that's what you should be going in for. Because if that means that you'll get a higher price, and to be fair, the brands have had maybe 5 years worth of fees, it's all fair.
Oh, that's nice. I think there was another question.
Looking after the owners, because they're the guys who are putting the money in.
Henry, I think what the panel haven't yet got around to saying on your point about about franchising is that from a guest perspective and the owners of the hotel's perspective, what is the reputation of the hotel going to look like if 1 minute it's this brand, the next minute it's that brand, the next minute it's the other brand? The guests are going to be put off completely. They're not going to know whether they're coming or going, what the state of the hotel is. And the poor reputation of the hotel is going to go completely out.
I don't think the market, at certain levels of the market, I don't think the market minds its price. So if it's an Express or a Travelodge or a Premier Inn,
I don't think you're going to, from the guest perspective though, because if it's a different flag every few years, they're just going to keep driving that's not that long a period of time, to be honest. Because even Vivek, who says he's not been in the industry very long, has been in the industry for more than 5 years and developed a portfolio of over 15 hotels in 5 years. So, it doesn't do a good job. It's not fair on the reputation of the hotel and the owner to keep reflagging every few years. I can see your point, and I think and the brands also, it's not just the owner that does their due diligence and their homework when they're looking to go into franchise. The brands would carefully scrutinise an application, and if they're not going to add value, they wouldn't entertain the discussions in many cases, and certainly that's the mainstream brands. They're not. There's this big misconception, I think, within the brand, within the kind of industry, that all the brands have to do every deal. They don't have to do every deal. They look carefully. They want to see longevity. They don't want to see the brand go on the door and then come off again in a few years' time. And they're more likely to they're only going to want to do deals that work in the long term. There's no benefit to anybody if you are reflagging a hotel every 5 years.
Conscious that time is ticking on, so I'm going to ask the floor and then ask the panel. Are there too many brands? Hands up for yes. Why?
I guess the reason I thought before is that in the end, any customer will struggle to differentiate between.
So are these new brands being created for the owners or for the consuming public?
I think the brands would like to think it's for the consuming public, but there's so many of them that start looking alike that you can't. I can only see there's going to have to be some kind of consolidation, winners and losers out of that, because. We've seen it in every single other market, and so it is a consumer brand, isn't it? It's consumer good. Somebody will win out. One of these portfolio brands will be the one that seems to be more successful than the other, and the others will gradually probably just fade away. So I think there are too many, and I think that you can't put the marketing effort behind each one, or if you did, it would be a huge amount of money.
I think the IHG argument, no, not the IHG argument, the Marriott argument, obviously, is that they're no longer marketing it as separate brands, they're marketing it as a whole. This is their current defence. Is that crap?
Well, it depends what you're trying to get and again, it depends what the owner and the location you're in. So I guess for many people, just knowing something's a Marriott must have some association around some kind of standards that you want. Then if it's a Marriott and all the other Courtyard or A, B and C and D, you ultimately want the consumer to have an immediate recognition that means something, and that's why they want to sign up for that, whether it's on Booking.com or direct. So in some areas, if you offer people too much choice, the value just splits over across too many areas, because fundamentally there's only a fixed number of people who are going to go to hotels. So I think it's somewhere there's going to be some dilution. It's not just a magic pot that just keeps growing. Magic money tree, as Labour would like to think it is, that every time you just add another brand, the market just grows to fill that brand. Somebody else is going to lose some market share.
Andrew, is this why you looked at me? Is this why Avid is the first brand to be I think is it by the IHG family, or part of it is added onto the brand name? Is it Avid by IHG? Or
I think it's standalone. I don't think it has the buy bit on it. It's only being launched in the US at the moment. But just to widen the point, I used to work for another brand platform that was constantly accused of having too many brands.
But that brand platform has a much wider scope in terms of the type of brand that it delivers, in my opinion.
Well, you can say it's concentrated at the limited service and mid-market end. But just to finish my point, so I came from a company that had was accused of having too many brands. I'm now working for IHG, and we are now being accused of not having enough brands. So I think that, the market doesn't know.
You're not being accused of that by the consumer, though.
No, by the investor market, and by analysts and advisors and consultants saying you haven't got enough brand spread to do this deal or that deal. So the market's confused itself as to how many brands a company should have. It seems to be going the other way now, that you need more brands because the other brand stables have got more brands than we've got. So we're being told to do catchy-uppy, which isn't the right way of doing it. So we are very focused on our particular markets and niches, and whether or not Avid comes over to the UK or Europe, time will tell. And I don't think it's needed in Europe yet. We could possibly look at it in the UK because of the scale of Express, but you wouldn't do it just because it's there. It has to be appealing to the market. It has to drive value. I mean, the problem with the limited service market in the UK is the RevPAR point doesn't necessarily drive the land value you need to do the deals, because the price of land in the UK is a lot higher than it is in the US because there isn't enough land in it. We're not making any more land You know, so that old question. So you bring the brand over if there's an opportunity and the market wants it, and you think
You
you can
haven't
get
had any owners saying, I fancy some of that Avid then?
We have had franchisees ask if we can do it. Yes, yeah, but we probably want to do it as we launch in the States. It was launched with a pipeline of 200 hotels, so you don't want to do it and then be waiting 5 years for your first one. You want to do it and get some scale pretty quickly. So if we could get to that point with an MDA franchisee that would do a portfolio of them quickly, then it comes back to that customer awareness again and deploying your best tools to fill it.
Any final questions? In that case, I'm going to ask Wolfgang, do you feel the need to have a Easy Hotel Lite or Easy Hotel Express? Or
How will that look like?
Cardboard top.
Yeah. No, I think with Easy Hotel, it's super happy with one brand, focusing on what we can do best, and just making that brand great. So one is absolutely fine, and we're happy with that. We've got the license to have Easy Hotel Apartments as well, but we're not rolling it out at the moment because we just don't see the need for it.
Excellent. In that case, I'd like everyone to join me in thanking my panel.
And thanks for Catherine.